For 12 years, she was told her voice wasn't good enough. Then that exact voice became the #1 song in the world. The very thing that got her rejected for over a decade is the exact thing that made her famous. This is a real story about what happens when you stop trying to sound like everyone else. By the end of this video, you'll know her real journey. 12 years of training, a devastating rejection, an accidental second career, and a song written on the way to the dentist that changed everything. Plus, a real look at how AI is reshaping the music industry she came up in. In 2003, in Seoul, South Korea, an 11-year-old girl named Kim Yoon-jae was scouted by one of the biggest entertainment companies in the world, SM Entertainment. They saw something in her. She was about to begin one of the hardest, most demanding training programs in the entire music industry. K-pop companies don't just sign artists, they build them over years, sometimes over a decade. This system has produced some of the biggest stars in the world, but it is also famously brutal. She trained right alongside people who would go on to become members of Girls' Generation, SHINee, and FX, which groups that would become some of the most famous in K-pop history. The talent in that building was extraordinary. Here's what a real training day looked like. Practice from 7 in the morning until 11 at night. Singing, dancing, performance, language lessons, day after day for years as a literal child. At just 13 years old, she fainted during practice. Her body simply couldn't keep up with the demands being placed on it, and she kept training anyway. Here's where her story takes a painful turn. SM had a very specific sound they wanted from their singers. Clean, bright, polished. Her natural voice was low and husky, and she was told over and over that it wasn't good enough. So she did what she thought she had to do. She tried to change her natural voice to push it higher, to make it sound cleaner, more like the singers the company wanted her to sound like. But you can't force your voice to be something it isn't without real consequences. The strain caused genuine problems with her vocal cords. Sometimes her voice would crack. Sometimes she couldn't sing at all. This wasn't a bad week. This was years of her life. A young girl trying desperately to sound like someone she wasn't, believing that was the only way to reach her dream. She trained for 12 years, 12. And through it all, she was considered for a different path, a group, a solo act, but she never actually debuted. Not once. Around 2015, when she was about 22 years old, SM made their decision. She was dropped from the company. After 12 years of training, it was simply over. She has said she cried in the taxi on the way home that day, and she cried for about a month afterward. 12 years of her life, and it felt like it had all led nowhere. In the middle of that pain, something honest happened. She has said she got very realistic with herself about whether she actually wanted to be a performer at all. She realized the idol life, glamorous as it looked from the outside, was genuinely grueling, and she didn't feel she had thick enough skin for it. With no clear plan, she found herself drawn into the underground SoundCloud music scene, a completely different world from polished K-pop, focused more on raw beats and instrumentals. She started making a lot of music just for herself. While figuring out her next steps, she started singing on Korean drama soundtracks, a smaller, quieter way back into music without the pressure of the idol system. Then something small happened that changed everything. Some songwriters asked if she could top-line a track. She had no idea what that even meant. They explained, it means writing a melody over music someone else has already made. She gave it a try. She wrote a melody about an ex-boyfriend, honestly, without overthinking it. That song got picked up by a well-known artist in Korea. Her very first attempt at songwriting worked. Something clicked. Songwriting fit her personality in a way performing never quite had. She has said it felt like home. It felt healing. She could write about whatever was troubling her instead of having to perform someone else's idea of perfect. Around this time, a songwriter and producer named Andrew Choi heard her early work and became her mentor. He believed in her enough to bring her to something huge, her first official SM songwriting camp. Here's something almost poetic. In 2017, she walked back into SM Entertainment, the same company that had dropped her as a performer, but this time as a songwriter. At that camp, inspired by a real argument with her long-distance partner, she wrote a melody that would become Psycho, a song later recorded by the girl group Red Velvet. It became a real certified hit. Here's the twist. The company that spent 12 years trying to fix her voice never realized her real gift was somewhere else entirely, in writing the songs, not just singing them. From there, she became a genuinely in-demand songwriter, working with some of K-pop's biggest groups, aespa, Twice, Lee Seraphim, and more. She was successful, just not in the way she originally imagined. Here's a real lesson worth pulling out. She could have kept forcing herself to be a performer. Instead, she got honest about where her real skill actually was. That honesty, even though it meant letting go of her original dream, is what opened the door to everything that came next. Notice she didn't have a grand master plan, a song about an ex-boyfriend, a soundtrack here and there, small, honest attempts, each one teaching her something new, slowly building towards something bigger. Here's the mindset shift worth remembering. Getting dropped felt at the time like total failure, but it was actually a redirection towards something she was even better suited for. She just couldn't see that yet. Around 2020, a new animated film was just getting started, Kpop Demon Hunters. She joined the project near its very beginning as a songwriter, helping shape the sound of the whole film. Getting a single song right for a scene sometimes took nearly 60 different demo versions. Most were discarded completely or reworked again and again, chasing exactly the right feeling. Then, one ordinary day, on the way to a dentist appointment, a melody appeared in her head out of nowhere. She knew immediately she had to capture it. She grabbed her phone and recorded it right there in the car. She has described moments like this as a kind of miracle for a songwriter, a full melody just arriving, seemingly from nowhere. That voice memo, recorded on an ordinary errand, would become the foundation of the biggest song of her career. This wasn't just any song. It needed to introduce 3 different characters, reveal the main character's biggest secret, and include a note so difficult to hit that the struggle to sing it became part of the story itself. Every section of the song had a specific job. The opening lines carry one character's anxiety about living up to her mother's legacy. Another section reflects a character torn between 2 cultures and 2 homes. Every 10 seconds had to do something different. Here's something clever about how the song was built. It sounds like a triumphant victory anthem, but underneath, the character singing it is doing the opposite of what the lyrics claim, singing about not hiding anymore, while in that very moment, still hiding who she really is. She has said directly that her own trainee experience helped her write and emote this exact feeling. The character on screen chasing an impossible standard of perfection, terrified to show any weakness. That wasn't just imagination. That was 12 real years of her own life. The director wanted the character to hit an incredibly high note, almost unrealistically high. There was just one challenge. She is naturally a low-toned, alto singer. Hitting that note meant real vocal stretching, real vocal gymnastics, pushing herself further than she thought she could go. Here's the beautiful part. In trying to hit that impossible note, she discovered she could actually do it. She found vocal range she genuinely didn't know she had. The same voice, once called not good enough, turned out to have more in it than anyone, including her, had realized. Here's something important and honest. This wasn't a straight line from rejection to triumph. Even after years of real success as a songwriter, she has said she hit a period where she genuinely considered giving up songwriting completely. Things weren't working out the way she'd hoped. She has said she cried recording the demo of this very song because she personally needed its message during that exact moment in her life. The song about someone chasing their goal despite deep insecurity. She wasn't just writing that. She was living it, again, right then. This matters because it's honest. Success doesn't mean doubt disappears forever. Even someone who had already turned rejection into a real career could still hit a moment of wanting to quit. That's not a flaw in her story. That's what makes it real. The directors heard her demo recordings, including her own singing voice on these tracks, and made a decision. They didn't just want her songs, they wanted her actual voice to be Rumi's singing voice in the film. Think about what just happened. The exact voice that SM once called not clean enough, not good enough, was now chosen to be the singing voice of the film's lead character, heard by millions of people around the world. When Golden was released as part of the film's soundtrack, nobody could have predicted what happened next. Golden became the first ever #1 song on the Billboard Hot 100 by a female-led K-pop group. It became the longest-running #1 by a girl group in the 21st century. The song topped the charts in more than 15 countries. It's approaching 4 billion streams. Kids in countries she's never even visited sing along to lyrics she wrote in Korean word for word. The song earned 4 Grammy nominations, including Song of the Year. It also won a Golden Globe. The girl once told her voice wasn't good enough for a K-pop group was now being celebrated at the biggest award shows in the world. At the Golden Globes, accepting her award, she said something that's become one of the most shared moments of her career. Rejection is redirection. Here's what that really means when you look at her actual story. Being dropped by SM wasn't the end of her path. It was the exact moment that redirected her toward songwriting, the thing she turned out to be genuinely great at. So let's pull together what actually made the difference in this story. Real honesty about her own skills, small, consistent attempts instead of one big plan, a mentor who believed in her, and the willingness to let go of an old dream to make room for a better one. But if there's one thing underneath all of it, it's this. Her actual breakthrough only happened once she stopped trying to sound like someone else and and let her real, different, imperfect voice be heard exactly as it was. Now, here's something worth knowing. While all of this was happening, something else was changing fast in the exact same industry EJAE grew up in. Kpop is now home to a genuinely huge new trend: AI-generated idols. Some groups use AI to create entire virtual band members from scratch. Others blend real human performers with AI-powered digital avatars. This isn't a small experiment. The global virtual idol industry is projected to grow past $15 billion. Real AI groups are already topping real music charts, selling out real concerts, and signing major brand deals. Some of these groups use motion capture, real performers wearing special suits that translate their real movements onto a digital character. Others are built entirely from computer graphics and AI voice generation with no single human performer behind them at all. This raises real questions people in the industry are actively debating right now. One university researcher who studies this closely has pointed out that AI and algorithm-driven music can favor sounds that are simply algorithm-friendly over music with real emotional depth, and it can make things financially harder for developing human artists who already struggle to earn fair pay. But not everyone sees it as a threat. One virtual idol creator has compared this moment to the invention of photography generations ago. Many painters feared photography would end painting forever. It didn't. Painters are still here. His argument, new technology usually adds new kinds of art rather than erasing what came before. And here's the honest truth. Both of these views are genuinely held by real people inside this industry right now. Nobody knows for certain exactly how this will all play out. That uncertainty itself is part of the story. Here's something worth noticing. Even EJAE's own project sits somewhere on this exact spectrum. An animated character brought to life by a completely real human voice and real human songwriting. It's a reminder that this technology and human artistry aren't always opposites. Sometimes they work together. Here's something worth noticing that EJAE herself hasn't said, but that her whole story makes you think about anyway. The voice that was once called not clean enough is exactly the kind of imperfect, distinctly human voice that AI still genuinely struggles to fully replace. That's not something she's claimed, it's just something her story makes you wonder about. If anything, stories like hers suggest something important about the future. As more and more content gets created by AI, a genuinely real, distinct, imperfect human voice might end up mattering more than ever, not less. You don't need 12 years of training or a record deal to learn something real from this story. If something you're working toward isn't working out the way you planned, that doesn't necessarily mean you failed. It might mean you're being redirected towards something you haven't discovered yet. And here's the bigger lesson. Whether you sing, write, code, draw, or build anything at all, trying to sound exactly like everyone else rarely works. The moment EJA stopped fighting her own natural voice was the exact moment everything changed for her. And remember this too, even after real success, she still had a moment of wanting to give up completely. If that ever happens to you, that doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It might just mean you're human, doing something that actually matters to you. 12 years of being told her voice wasn't good enough. One song written on the way to the dentist that became the biggest hit of her career. The lesson isn't really about K-pop or Grammy nominations or Billboard charts. It's about what happens when you finally stop trying to be someone else's version of golden and become your own.